Hello, everyone, and we are live for this Crypto Week in Review, the fourth actually, the Crypto Week in Review of the 28th of May. It's going to be through the eye of the journalist. I have the pleasure to welcome Leia. Nice to meet you, Leia.
Thanks for having me. It's good to meet you.
Yeah, and I have also Dan Roberts, editor-in-chief at Decrypt. And this week we're going to really decrypt and encrypt all the news that happened this week. So we had a packed week. Dan, Leia, what are the main subjects of the week for you?
All right, I'll kick it off. All right. So it's been an insane week. I also think a week to remember. I would put this week down to being a week jam-packed, full of FUD. And I think that is why we're seeing so much confusion in the markets. It's been an odd week because although it's been very much FUD driven, whether it be China, Iran, Hong Kong, Nigeria, all pushing the same sentiments, the same narratives, there's also been a lot of bullish sentiments this week. I saw Goldman Sachs. They, for the very first time, actually recognized Bitcoin as this new asset class. So I think that's huge. Ray Dalio talking about Bitcoin over bonds in a scenario of hyperinflation, calling cash trash again. These are really bullish things. ARK Invest, the Wyoming senator. We can get into all of that. But there's a lot of bullish narratives going on right now. Meanwhile, a lot of FUD. And I think this confusion is very much mirrored in the price that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. And let me just chime in on that. The only thing I push back on the FUD is that a lot of times, and I'm used to this having covered this industry since 2011, you get people in this space who respond to any negative, upsetting headline with FUD, that's FUD. And what we at Decrypt say is, look, we're going to cover it when the price is down and we cover it when the price is up. But I do agree with you. The way I'd framed it is there's a lot of confusion and misinformation that goes out there, especially now that, crypto is more mainstream than it's ever been. I mean, just briefly for my own background, I was at Fortune for 5 years, then I was at Yahoo Finance for 5 years. So kind of legacy media, that those were places where I wasn't always able to fully stretch my legs and write as much about crypto as I would have wanted and kind of get in the weeds. The whole reason I came over about 4 months ago to run Decrypt was because I think that crypto is bigger than it's ever been. Anyone on this call, anyone watching this, I'm sure would agree. And as a result, you're having more mainstream, non-pure play crypto news outlets covering it almost every day. So you often have them getting stories just a little bit wrong in a key way. So, you talk about the last couple of weeks, it's been a roller coaster. Point to whatever thing you want for what you think has had the biggest impact on price. Elon Musk's tweets, which you didn't mention, but I think really have, Elon Musk publicly worrying about Bitcoin's environmental impact. That brought the green issue back to the fore. Then China, you're right. I think China probably the biggest thing. Multiple different stories out of China. But to zoom in on the China stuff, you had a lot of news outlets, what was it, over a week ago? It was last Wednesday, so a week and 2 days, when there was the biggest single day crash and there was the news of China doing a ban. And a lot of mainstream news outlets wrote, China is going to ban Bitcoin, or China is doing a new ban on crypto mining. Wasn't a new ban, not a new ban. All that happened, payments groups in China came out with a statement reiterating and warning people, by the way, still not good news, but warning investors about crypto speculation. So it was a reiteration of an existing ban. That was the first thing. Then, of course, you had, separately a few days later, kind of round two from China, which was a committee or council there led basically reiterating that crypto mining concerns them and even the possibility of monitoring crypto miners or adding them to a list. None of this was good news, but it was still framed as much, much worse, earth-shattering, horrible, bearish news, more damaging than it was. So things get kind of misframed. And then, of course, as you mentioned, there was Inner Mongolia, Iran. Take your pick of different headlines that hurt the price. And I always say, this is such a headline-driven market. I mean, what is more headline-driven? Maybe less so now, but a few years back, if there was a story about a hack of an exchange, Bitcoin would go down 15%, and people who don't understand would say, Bitcoin was hacked again. And I had to constantly say, no, Bitcoin wasn't hacked. A centralized exchange had a breach. Or hackers used Bitcoin, demanded Bitcoin as the ransom. But the Bitcoin blockchain wasn't hacked. So there's a lot of things that happen that get misframed by media that don't know better.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is for you, Dan.
Yeah, no. No, I definitely agree with you. But I think, calling it FUD, there you go. There's the police sirens.
Sorry about this. I don't know what's going on. I live in a small town in Connecticut. Someone's getting arrested, I guess.
Damn. No, but just off the back of that, I think the FUD is interesting. I interviewed somebody based in China because for me, I've been in the space since 2018. So I don't have that kind of full background knowledge that takes you all the way back to 2011, like yourself. And so, I asked him and I said, you have to tell me what is going on. I don't understand. Okay. Like how, obviously I understand that this is a reiteration of news. That's especially what we saw in Nigeria yesterday anyway. It's very much 2017 news essentially. But what he said to me was, which was really fascinating. He said that a lot of the time it's just signaling. And it doesn't mean that anything's going to happen. Even if they're having proposals and conversations, it's literally just signaling. And in his opinion, it's to affect the market. It is to be FUD and have the kind of impacts and influence that this kind of FUD has. And so I found that really fascinating. And I said to him, what is the situation? Can people even buy crypto in China? And he said you have to be creative if you want to buy it. And that blew my mind. I didn't know that. So it is really fascinating. But just to talk about the Elon Musk story for a second, that one was interesting because after he spoke about this Bitcoin mining council, a lot of people said that, wow, he made the markets go up. But I absolutely disagree. I mean, Dan, I don't know whether you're on that side, but a lot of people said that the markets jumped after that. And I wholeheartedly disagree. I mean, Bitcoin has been going from 35 to 40K before that conversation, before that tweet. So how on earth you can attribute a 1.5K jump to Elon Musk's tweets? I just don't think you can.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think there is one fact that is interesting about Elon Musk is that right now we are discovering how few he knows about blockchain, and he masterized this technology with as well having to have like that many Bitcoin into his account, etc. But it reveals also the fact that he's discovering the technology still. Is not like with an advanced knowledge of different cycles, etc. We just discovered the energy consumption last week. Maybe next time he's gonna.
Can I just jump in there? Can I just jump in there? I really disagree. Now, a lot of people say I give Elon Musk too much credit. Maybe I do. I don't care. He didn't just discover it. This man is a genius. He's literally competing with NASA or working with NASA, however you want to look at it, as if he just discovered Bitcoin mining. You do not, as a company, you don't put 1.5 billion into Bitcoin and then agree to accept Bitcoin as payment and hold the profits, and you don't know the effects that it has on the environmental effects. There's something else going on. And to think that he doesn't have a bigger plan is highly naive. And I really think people don't give him enough credit. Actually,
it's the opposite for me, but that's
arguably giving him not enough credit for his influence. But I mean that kind of in a negative way. And you're right. How could it be that you go all in on Bitcoin and then 3 months later someone whispers in your ear, "Hey, the mining uses a lot of electricity," and you go, "Ooh, oh." But I do think, like most things, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So probably what happens is, and we know this from his SNL appearance, and we know this from his tweets for years. I mean, how about his tweets about Tesla? Taking Tesla private at $4.20 a share, funding secure. You don't just fire that off, but he did. I think in many ways, he kind of does whatever he wants and doesn't give a shit. And I know that when the SEC comes knocking, he says, and he likes it, and he points and laughs, and he says, "What are you gonna do? Find me? Find me." And so I do think it's possible that, surely he knew a little bit about the controversy or concerns some have about the mining, but maybe he hadn't fully done his homework, and instead he just said, "I like crypto, I like Bitcoin, let's buy a bunch." And then more recently, someone that he trusts whispers in his ear and says, "It's hurting Tesla's green image." And the reason that
go into the detail of it, you have to be more precise.
Right, but someone said the noise in the last month about Bitcoin and the gotten louder, maybe unfairly. And a lot of those people squawking about that don't get the nuance, or they're making unfair comparisons. It's like people who say, "I've heard NFTs are bad for the environment," but they don't really understand to say it. But someone that he trusts said to him, the noise is getting loud enough that it's hurting Tesla's reputation. And Tesla has to prioritize, its image as an environmentally friendly company. So he said, "All right, we're out. Never mind."
But do you know what's really funny? Yeah, do you know what's really funny on that point is so sending rockets to space is not wonderful for the environment, like just to put it really, really simply. But it's the same argument because creating a multi-planetary species, which is what he wants to do, is in his opinion a net positive, right? We all agree sending rockets to space uses energy, but it's a net positive to make sure the human race continues.
Yeah,
Isn't that the
because if
same
we don't
argument for
send them,
Bitcoin? But then that's the same argument for Bitcoin, though, isn't it? Because the idea is that we all agree Bitcoin uses energy. Of course, everything uses energy. Christmas lights in the US use more energy than certain nations across Africa. But it's a net positive. So it's the same argument.
It's interesting to see. What interests me is to see the dynamics inside corporation and see that. And obviously, inside this narrative, there was a new guy into the play, and it's always the same. It's Michael Saylor that went into the rescue. So apparently, he arranged the meeting with the Bitcoin miners in America. Dan, Leia, what's your opinion about this and about the role of Michael Saylor? For me, the guy is a living R2 corporate into Bitcoin.
Okay, so firstly, I always respect somebody that puts their money where their mouth is. Okay, like don't talk about something if you don't have skin in the game. So mad respect. Pardon?
Over and over and over does it.
Yeah.
Like I want to invite him here, actually.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, he's got skin in the game. He buys those dips. So huge respect. I have no criticism whatsoever for the guy. And I think he is a great spokesperson for Bitcoin. I heard him on, I think he was talking to Julia on, is she CNBC or CNN? I can't remember. But he gave a great analogy and example of the whole Bitcoin energy situation, right? Talking about it as a net positive and so on. So I think he's a great spokesperson. I think the Bitcoin Mining Council is just so fishy, to put it bluntly. It's odd. Like, what do you mean you spoke to miners in North America? Like, what miners?
Right,
I thought we do things anonymously. Like, did you get all of the miners?
No, I
or
think
only those miners? I was like,
yes, we put them all around a round table.
Right.
Right.
So I'm like, did you get all the miners? How did you find those miners? So are decisions being made in a small centralized group of people? You know, we criticize China for being highly centralized when it comes to Bitcoin mining. And now you're creating a council which will be centralized where decisions are being made by... What happened?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was like, did I do something?
You know?
Yeah. So
I
essentially,
think it was the jingle of the beginning. I think that launched a little bit late.
Okay. So essentially, so essentially, you know, it's basically which miners you're not including all of the miners. This is going to be centralized. How are two billionaires getting together and having private conversations? This is inherently anti-Bitcoin, and there's a lack of transparency here. And it, you know, this community is all about transparency and being trustless and so on. I feel like this is very much against it.
Well, and to play off that, you're right that there are multiple examples recently of things that some in the crypto community like, but I think they're not pausing to say, wait a minute, this actually kind of contradicts the entire thing. You know, what are we doing here? Not just Elon Musk having, you know, we can debate how much, but certainly we can agree a direct impact on crypto prices when he tweets. Yeah. I mean, let's not even talk about, you know, Dogecoin. But not just billionaires and their influence, but also things like certain NFT platforms where it's like, well, wait a minute, is it decentralized? Because now you're, you know, trusting one website to host it. Well, that's not decentralized. I mean, there's all kinds of examples of things that are happening now that, you know, well, wait a minute. Or to zoom out, I also love and find interesting the push and pull, the tension between, everyone loves to say more regulation, and some of the biggest names on Wall Street who have gone in, you know, you mentioned Cathie Wood of ARK, other hedge fund people who now believe in Bitcoin have invested, they say, bring on the regulation, great, SEC, regulate us. And well, there are OGs who have been in space since 2010 who the whole reason they got in and liked Bitcoin was it's not regulated, it's outside government control. So, you know, you have to weigh those things. I don't mean to get us away from the mining conversation, but, you know, to your point, that's just something that continues is things that, you know, a little bit are getting us away from the original value proposition of the whole thing, which is, you know, no middleman, no trusted, you know, controller, arbiter who is in charge. That's all. But, you know, to your point about the mining, these guys just tweet lots of things that I think sometimes are pretty tenuous. You know, talk to miners. It's like you said, okay. And then Argo came forward, the CEO of Argo, and said, yes, you know, raise their hand. We're on this mining committee. It's the new mining committee. Well, there's not supposed to be committees. It's supposed to be tens of thousands of nodes that reach consensus, and there is no committee. So what are we doing here?
Yes, the only consensus is on the blockchain right now, I think, such as like, I think, it's more like lobby and politics. This association is just an association of miners that you can find in Europe, in America. It doesn't represent all the miners, and it doesn't give any extensive obligation to miners to follow the principles that this association does. It's more advocating associations that I think are creating in order to create a dialogue with government, other institutions, etc. And it's a lot of la 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 this week that happened inside the tweet. A lot of in France we call it la la la. Like it doesn't. It's just like song and nothing really gonna emerge from this situation. For me, it's really interesting that we went to speak about the green situation of Bitcoin, the state of play of today, the elements that need to enhance, and that everyone get to a consensus that it needs to evolve into more transparent, etc. But I think we are clear we didn't find any solutions this week.
Well, and one other thought, if I may, on the green stuff. Leia, you mentioned something earlier about how, but by the way, sending rockets into space, uses up a lot of energy, but we all agree that we like it and it's worthwhile. And what Bitcoiners say to all the environmental concerns is it's justified, it's worth it. And you mentioned Christmas lights. That's Melton Demir's favorite example. No one complains about Christmas lights. Favorite example is there are office buildings all over the country, all over the world, that keep their lights on literally 24/7 because they say it's a safety issue. I mean, that's a huge energy suck and electricity usage. We don't talk about that. All that said, for now, when we have these conversations, we don't really get to any kind of takeaway because for now, everyone just follows along predictable lines. People who like Bitcoin and crypto and think it's important and think it's going to change the world or already has, they say, it's justified, it's fine, shut up. There are lots of things to use energy, it's okay. People who either think it's stupid or just aren't interested in crypto or they want it to go away. They look and they don't want the nuance. They just see a headline that says, Bitcoin mining uses the same amount of energy as the whole country of Argentina. And they go, look at that. That's horrible. What a scourge. Get rid of it. And we don't really get anywhere still.
Mm-hmm. And so we're going to go to the next subject if you want.
Go for it. No problem. Go for it. It's okay.
Next subject, more about the week of NFT and DeFi. So the week has trembled for Bitcoin, for assets, but for trends. Is DeFi dead? Is DeFi surviving? What about NFT as well? For you, those trends, what are they like, and how do you see them in regard of this week? I could tell you my testimony as well, but first you.
All right, I'll start with NFTs. So I don't have a huge love for NFTs. I don't dislike them. I'm just not wowed by them. Some people are in love with NFTs, and that's cool. But my opinion is that everything in this world has gone digital, and everything will continue to go digital. The entire human experience, especially following COVID, has gone even more digital at a faster pace than we could have imagined, right? So socializing is digital, working as we're doing right now is digital, eating, I go to restaurants and the human is gone. There's no menu, it's all done on the phone. And so it makes sense to me that art and everything else will go digital. And so there's definitely a place for it. And of course there is a bubble, there's a bubble with everything. You could argue that Bitcoin is not necessarily a bubble as a whole, but the bull market is a bubble and it pops and everything comes down. So I definitely think that NFTs are a bubble. But long term, there is a place for it. So that's where I stand on NFTs. DeFi is not dead either. We need to make finance far more accessible. And I think that's where DeFi really comes in. Whether we need DeFi in, let's just say the West, for example, that will take its time. That will grow. That will take its time. Places like Africa, for example, are very much jumping these revolutions because they don't have access to what they need, whether it be, working with people across the world, whether it be getting mortgages, just really helping their own lives improve. That's for me where I've always sort of seen the value in DeFi. I think in the West, there is value, but it's so new and it's so experimental. And I don't think we can afford actually to start taking our mortgages out on the blockchain because it's too new. And it's too much of a risk. But in Africa, places that desperately need this kind of financial help, yet they can afford to take those kind of risks with decentralized finance.
Which, by the way, use cases in places like that, I forget if it was BitPesa or M-Pesa, but one of the earliest apps that impressed me that I would cite as an example, years and years ago when it was still early, by the way, it is still early now, but was apps that were letting people who don't have bank accounts get paid via crypto and then convert it to their fiat currency. That was one of the earliest examples of a retort to people who say, what's the point? What's the use case? That's a great example. Now with DeFi, my biggest problem there, I know I have friends who are down the DeFi investing rabbit hole, and they're saying, I'm getting 44% return on blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, but there's still a lot of friction there. And so it's going to take a long time. All the people talking about DeFi, they're doing Compound and Aave, and they're doing insurance layers with Nexus. All these people are crypto savvy people who are already deeply obsessed and know all the things and all the tech. But, if you try and talk to someone who's new to this space and say, well, first you buy some ETH on an exchange, then you need MetaMask or a different Chrome wallet plugin, and then go to this other site and then, send ETH from your MetaMask wallet. It's like, so eventually that's going to have to get a little smoother.
I see a lot of setup with PancakeSwap and Bunny on BSC that are like DeFi-ish, with liquidity providing pool. And with Trust Wallet on mobile, it works really well. We have a lot of new buy people that's going into BSC because of the burning fees of the network of Ethereum that right now is quite important. Even if right now you can find some window at $15 sometimes that appears and you jump on it and you do all the transaction of the day on it, and that Uniswap V3 will come back with a really good reduction of fee. It's going to come in the next few weeks. For me on NFT right now, it's quite weird because I see also the backstage and what different technology are preparing. We're going to assist into like a momentum where we go through one generation to another, and it's going to be real clear in the next few months, like with different type of NFT, which are not like just your standard type of poster NFT that you can see in different marketplaces. We're going to go through far more advanced objects, and I think that's the completion of going through one generation to the other will be the success of. Is it a bubble or is it really a technology, as you say, Leia? On NFT, on DeFi, it's interesting because as we had like those decrease in market, we lived it in September last time, but it shows that DeFi was quite robust enough, and it creates also a response to the question like those interest rates will not like keep up forever, etc. The market has to adjust to the volatility. The APY gets less important, but the total valuation log stays. And that's interesting because basically in terms of number of crypto, we didn't saw DeFi scramble up totally.
Yeah.
And, one note on NFTs, I didn't say anything about NFTs. It's possible there can be a bubble and then it peaks or pops, and that still doesn't mean that the thing completely goes away. The comparison I make with NFTs, and this sounds so bad at first, but if we all remember the ICO boom, and now looking back, ICO is a dirty word, but so many of the ICOs or token sales were junk coins. They were projects that had no there, and the SEC cracked many, and many were just posing people for money, and there was no project, no nothing. But there were tokens launched during that time that were legitimate and have survived now and exist today and were real and had value. So similarly, I think with NFTs, there will be a great shaking out, where, in a year or so, we look back and a lot of the NFTs from the last 4 months look like money grabs, junky stuff, celebrities just doing a stupid digital trading card that raised money. There will be use cases that prove to be really interesting and have value. And that's why when people talk about NFTs, I always say everyone wants to just refer to the whole thing under one umbrella term. But you kind of have to drill down and say, well, what type of NFTs are we talking about? There's music, there's artwork, there's sports and digital trading cards. There's, a virtual experience where you can interact. There's all kinds of stuff people are doing with NFTs. So I'm hesitant to entirely dismiss it. Although right now I think that the money grab things do detract from the whole space.
Yeah, I think that NFTs, there's so many different ones, as you mentioned. And I think one of the use cases which I really just foresee is kind of authenticating physical items. So say like you have a Rolex watch, Louis Vuitton handbag, like designer items, and authenticating, how many is it? What number is it? Looking at its history. My brother is actually a huge watch fan. No, I don't know much about watches, but my brother does. So I understand from him that a Rolex, it can be the same Rolex, okay? But if it comes from, let's say, Dubai, I think he said, as opposed to somewhere in Europe, it trades at a lower price. And so you want to know that history. And I think having that on the blockchain is really powerful. And I said this to a Bitcoin maximalist, and they were like, yeah, but like, why do you need it on a blockchain? And I'm like, well, firstly, why not? Okay. If everything is going digital, that's like saying like, why do we need phones when you can use a computer? It's just like, well, why not? Because everything's becoming digital. And then secondly, verification on a blockchain is far more secure than on a piece of paper, which can be doctored, you know? So for me, it's really obvious. But Dan, you mentioned another example of an NFT. I can't remember which one you mentioned.
One point about that, Leila, and I advise you to go there. Louis Vuitton and Cartier and two other brands. It was Switchere as well, etc. I've created a common project about this, and it's really recent. I could put you the people in front of you.
All right, that's cool. I like Louis Vuitton handbags.
Like me too.
I'm sure you're French. It comes with the territory.
Yeah, Dan, what's your takes on this kind of NFT?
Well, Leia, maybe when you were asking about a type I brought up, was it like athlete or celebrity ones? I mean, because I think some people. I can't remember
what you said.
Yeah, it always gets a story, and you know, certainly we at Decrypt write it up sometimes too. Although I said already 2 months ago to the staff, like, we're not going to do a story about every stupid celebrity NFT. Some of them clear a certain bar, and you kind of feel like we can't ignore it. But I think a lot of these, either celebrities, athletes, artists. Someone who handles their tech investments is just whispering in their ear and they're saying, dude, do an NFT. That's the cool new thing. Okay, you know, and then we get a press release and it says, you know, LeBron James, that's just an example that I chose because he hasn't done one, but, you know, LeBron James is doing an NFT series and everyone goes, oh, wow. And everyone writes up, LeBron, NFTs. And then some people say, you know, this is great. It shows LeBron believes in crypto. LeBron loves Bitcoin. Well, not necessarily and probably not. It means that one of his advisors told him, the latest, hottest, hippest way to get money and press is to do an NFT. So Gronk, you know, Patrick Mahomes, all kinds of, you know, John Cleese from the Monty Python gang. It's just kind of a silly thing. That's not, I almost wish it weren't considered in the same category as, you know, musicians or real artists doing them. Because the value proposition for them is earn more royalties down the road for the work we can all agree with.
That was it.
Yes, NFT, it's not going to last. It's a poster. It's a digital poster. It's not have any value. It's not going to last. What is important is the experience that is beyond it. Leia, sorry, I interrupt you.
No, that's okay. What I was going to say was I totally agree with you. The music industry is going to be one of those areas in which NFTs flourish just because of how corrupt the entire situation is for artists. And so, yeah, I just want to echo that basically because I've been speaking with a lot of different people who are in that industry and are making a lot of money because they finally own the rights to their own music. And then people who like that music can then actually earn royalties every time it plays. You know, if you take a share of that music or whatever it is, you know, you own a token of that music. The song, whatever, is tokenized, so you own X amount of tokens. So yeah, no, music industry is definitely a place where I think NFTs will flourish in the future.
And one retort to people who say, you know, this whole thing is a money grab and it's stupid. I have a couple friends who've bought Euler Beats NFTs. And, you know, those are DJ beats. And those friends are really into music. And so, yes, they like that you earn more of a cut every time one is minted. And they like that eventually they could resell it and make more money, of course. But they also will tell you the reason they specifically like these NFTs is because they legitimately think it's cool and they like music. Whereas I do think there are a lot of rich people just buying and flipping NFTs, and it's purely as a speculative money-making play.
Of course. I mean, that's it with anything, right?
Yeah, it's free. We saw also a lot of news about CBDC, the central currency, and around the world. It has been moved in different regions. We've made a little bit of a world tour already. Which for you is the best CBDC actually, or which one is the one that you are following really precisely? It's one of the questions from the panel that we have today.
Is that for Yeah, I can go for it. There's
And
no
it was Jeremy Deming,
CBDC.
sorry.
Okay, so thank you for the question. There's no specific CBDC that I'm following because I think they're all CRAP. They're essentially just a digital version of what we have now. So I don't really need to follow it because I have it. Essentially, it's fiat. I just think that what I really hope happens, basically, and it is that people realize that just because countries start to adopt CBDCs does not mean they are moving into cryptocurrencies. And that is really, really important because the problems which Bitcoin came to fix will still remain no matter how many CBDCs we create. So the governor I think it was the Central Bank of Nigeria, I can't remember who, maybe the governor of that, they announced yesterday that they are now looking into creating a CBDC. So the Nigerian naira is in hell. It's absolutely terrible. I think they have about 25% inflation year on year or something like that. And having a CBDC does not fix that. It's unbelievable. And they will trick their citizens into thinking that this fixes the problem. And that really upsets me, honestly, because I follow what's going on in Africa and I think it's awful. And so I hope that, our community can spread wide enough to educate people and make sure that they realize that CBDCs are nothing more than what we have now.
Yep. Not only that, but to get back to my earlier point about what's happening that defeat the purpose of why we're all here, what are we doing getting excited about governments doing a stable coin? Then it's the government. I mean, right? Like the idea that that's going to be a great new thing for people. Well, crypto was, the initial value proposition was to get away from government control. And, the idea that Bitcoin, goes up when governments are interfering or when the Fed here in the US is printing money and when the government is handing out stimulus checks, the idea that makes crypto prices go up, how would Fed coin affect that? And I also think that just like we just said about celebrities doing NFTs, some of this is a way for governments or lawmakers to look like they're with the times and they get tech and they're looking into it. Bank of Canada, just yesterday, we did a story on this. An official from the Bank of Canada said, our central bank digital currency is going to be greener than Bitcoin. People say, "Oh, wow!"
No, it's rapidly said. Huh?
Yeah, it's just claims. I mean, they're just saying things. And I just think I don't know how much value will actually be created by a Fed coin or by Now, in the case of China, that's the one that's most interesting, mostly for the rest of the crypto market in the world. Because if China pushes a digital yuan, over in China they kind of do what they want and they tell the people do what we say. That really could catch on in China. So what does that mean for Bitcoin's price? What does that mean for Bitcoin mining in China? Those are legitimate questions.
One thing I think you're going strong on CBDC right now and on their useless impact, guys. Like just my opinion on this reading is that, yes, CBDC is a tool of government. I'm not here to kill government, meaning that the aim of Bitcoin is not like to kill any government, authority, neither society and way to live between human beings. For me, it's enhance this way to do it and enhance government in a way to create new structuration, more openly, more equitably, more transparent with each other. And this is the way. For me, CBDC is quite still a good news in order that it opens up a window for corporate, institutional, traditional companies that are going to still exist in a decentralized world to go on crypto via a way, to go from CBDC as a gateway to crypto. What's your opinion on that?
I definitely think that CBDCs can be seen as a way into crypto, but no more than like buying Doge as a way into Bitcoin.
Okay, interesting. Actually, one last question.
David, one last thing, and I'm not trying to say, I keep mentioning government. It's not like I think that the only reason for crypto is by government control. I'm not one of those people, to be clear.
Yeah.
But I guess that what I'd stress more is that I see a little bit of a contradiction with VCs. It's like, there are government officials who say, or have long said, look at Janet Yellen. I don't like that it looks like it's anonymous. Meanwhile, it's not anonymous. It's semi-anonymous. I don't like that it looks like it's used for illicit crime. Meanwhile, as we all know, lots of fiat currencies are also used for crime. But, there are all these things I don't like. But then they say, it's like that, the Drake meme of like, no. And it's like, the idea that we could make our own Ooh, that I like. So there's some irony there to me.
Yeah, I see your point about that. Right now, they selling us a big picture, beautiful, with all the positive aspect without seeing any negative aspect. It's not quite fair. I'm gonna let you with one last question, and then like maybe a wrap up of this review. This is the last question of the community. This is a question that I always read everywhere. It's Tyler that asks us: is how will the copyright is working on NFT? Like, do you know how it works? Do you have elements that you want to advise to some people? I could give a little of a sum up to begin with. Basically, on NFT, you have to own the copyright that you're going to attach normally, or you shouldn't distribute it, meaning you can mint basically any NFT you want. The problem is when you're going to, if you commercialize it or you distribute it, then you have to own the copyright of the NFT you have or to have the license, etc. Classical world. There is no international IP structure to handle everything because IP is national by extent. So it's a big, brilliant mess in the world. Some nations have IP license and some nation doesn't have any. The condition to get out of IP is different from any country and different from every country. But there is an harmonization, which is basically on the date either of the death of the artist or the date of the parution of the first time the art was done. Voila, for the resume. Do you have any other point to add about this?
Was that a viewer question?
Yeah. Was that what?
Was that a viewer submitted question?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I'll go quickly. The fact that you can mint any NFT, even if you don't have the copyright, and then someone could come along and say you don't own the copyright to that. Well, that's no different from bootleg T-shirts that have Calvin and Hobbes, on them. Frat T-shirts that use Bart Simpson, and then Fox comes and sues you. It's like anything else. I was on a panel with some legal law who were saying, they're rapidly scrambling to try to understand the IP implications of NFTs. But in general, the default is probably, if it looks like copyright infringement and it smells like copyright infringement, you can send a letter and a cease and desist, and it's copyright infringement, just like anything else. If you have a client who notices that someone is selling merch with their art without their permission, I would think that an artist noticing that someone minted their art as an NFT is the same kind of thing. It's a problem, and wait a minute, don't do that. So, people who are minting NFTs should only mint something that it's an image or piece that they have ownership of, like anything else, unless they want to take the risk of being sued.
Yep.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's pretty straightforward. There's no point me echoing what you both just said, but pretty much.
Yeah, and you can find a lot of things that are open in terms of IP that you can use, reuse, mix, remix to then create your own original stuff. So thank you everyone to be on this Crypto Week in Review. This was the first one. Anything to add to finish this session? Leia, Dan, I'll give you the word of the end.
Sure, why not? So thank you so much for inviting me on. And thank you for everyone watching. Dan, it's been great meeting you. What I would say, guys, is just enjoy the ride. Don't take it all too seriously. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose. What goes up must come back down. And I would just say, enjoy the ride, have fun with it, and don't get too greedy. Take out profits when you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that is true. And, I never even advise anyone necessarily to invest in crypto at all. We don't dispense investment advice, but as you said, you only put it when you can afford to lose. I guess my sign off would be from the media's perspective, and by the way, I hope everyone watching reads Decrypt. Our site is decrypt.co. Check us out, download our app. But, the thing I'd say is reader beware, when you're looking at headlines across the web, do your homework, do a little bit more research, because every so often the first most screaming headline you see can often be a little bit misleading. Bitcoin crashes 16% because China's banning it. I mean, if you only saw that headline and stopped reading, you'd say, all right, I guess Bitcoin died today. That's it. So, be careful. And the truth and the correct information is often nuanced.
Yeah, it's really interesting what you both said, and so thank you for the disclaimer and the education about this. Dan, you're right. Like, you need to read through the headline, meaning you read the article, the text that is just below the headline. Spoiler: it exists. It has detail.
I just want to add on that point though. Like, that's nothing new though. That is news and journalism in general, right? When it comes to politics and everything that we see in this world, it's always a really misleading headline. So just have your wits about you and think for yourself. That's
I
my
think
last
we're gonna
slide.
do a new crypto week in review in order like to have a tutor on how to read actually the press and the crypto press. It would be really good to have your lens, etc. Guys, I'm gonna let you for this week, but I'm sure we're gonna come back next week to decrypt together, Leia and Dan, this actuality. Thank you, guys. It's been really a pleasure to be with you this week.
Good fun. Everyone have a good weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.